Good morning and welcome. I ask that everyone take his or her seats so we can begin this very special Veterans Day celebration. My name is Nick Romano, and I am proud and honored to represent the Bonita Bay Club Veterans Council. We are 500 strong. We are very proud of all veterans and special guests who are here with us today. We are here to celebrate and honor all U.S. veterans around the world. Thank you to the Lee County Sheriff's Department for being here today and for all they do for the residents of Bonita Springs. Special thanks to Bonita Bay Club management and staff, especially Fred, Becky, Aldo, and Janet. Without their hard work, this could have never happened. And to the planning group of the council. Would you please stand up and be recognized? Valerie? They're working outside. Here's Jim Pop. To date, the Bonita Bay Club Veterans Council has raised over $12,000, and the money will be used to help disadvantaged veterans in Bonita Springs. This is only the beginning. Without further ado, a person who has guided us through our journey, Stephen Salaka, let the celebration begin.
Good moment. Can we introduce Mr. Michael Durant, please?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wow, it's just terrific. You know, we're so pleased and proud to have this opportunity this morning. I'd like to recognize, by way of a special thank you also to Nick Romano and Bob Gillette, who are two of Bonita Bay Club's finest veterans, and clearly could not have done this without them. They've worked tirelessly to pull all of this together this morning. Today, our nation takes pause to see the big picture and to celebrate our courageous veterans, to express our deep gratitude and acknowledgement for their heroic service to our great country and to our way of life. We are truly blessed. Michael Durant is a New York Times best-selling author and motivational speaker, best known as the brave pilot of Black Hawk helicopter Super 64 that sustained heavy fire and subsequently crashed dramatically during the legendary and heroic urban combat operation in Mogadishu on October 3rd, 1993. And as depicted in the movie Black Hawk Down, he was then overrun, taken prisoner after a most horrific street battle where he sustained numerous injuries, including a broken back and multiple gunshot wounds. Successfully, Mr. Durant has turned this immortalizing experience into a powerful story of survival and valor. He is the author of New York Times bestseller, In the Company of Heroes. Michael joined the Army's 160th Special Operations Group in August 1988, and before retiring as Chief Warrant Officer 4 of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Mr. Durant participated in combat operations in the Persian Gulf, Panama invasion, Desert Storm, and the liberation of Kuwait, and of course, Gothic Serpent, Somalia, 1993. Chief Durant is the recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal, the Distinguished Flying Cross with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Bronze Star with Valor Device, the Meritorious Service Medal, POW Medal, and numerous others, to include the Purple Heart. Mr. Durant has a Bachelor of Science degree in Professional Aeronautics and an MBA in Aviation, and is currently president of Pinnacle Solutions Incorporated, a simulation and training company based in Huntsville, Alabama. Michael and his wife Lisa are the proud parents of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. If you would please join me in a very special Veterans Day welcoming Mr. Michael J. Durant.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to share this special day. I got a little bit of notoriety 21 years ago that stays with me today, and I typically get asked a lot to talk on days like Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And this year, my schedule was booked pretty early. Bob Gillette called me, I'm not sure how long ago that was, Bob, but probably 9 months ago, I guess it was, a year ago, and got it booked. So thanks, Bob, for making it happen. You beat out a school, though. It was a school that wanted me near Huntsville, which I have a Marine that works for me, and he graciously volunteered to go cover that for me. So he's on his way there right now. He's who I was talking to this morning, by the way. So, you know, it's that kind of proactive engagement that you can tell from, you know, knowing Bob 5 minutes, how passionate he is about this kind of stuff that, you know, makes things like that happen. So I think we owe him a debt of gratitude, as I'm sure those who know him understand that well. And thank you to the Bonita Bay Country Club as well for hosting this event. And also want to mention that my mom lives nearby, so when I looked at the map, I thought, you know, we don't see each other all that often. Why not have her come down and spend, I guess, 12 whole hours with me during my visit. And again, thanks for being asked to do this. I did some research years ago on one of the first Veterans Day speeches that I did, and the one that I looked up as I was preparing for the more formal event I'm going to do later on this morning was from about 10 years ago. And I went out and looked up some facts, and at the time, according to what I found on the internet, which is 100% accurate, right? Isn't it? There were 25 million living veterans. I mean, just that number alone was kind of staggering when I read it. Just it's hard to believe that there are that many veterans alive. And, you know, it really comes from some of the major battles, obviously World War II, and the biggest one, and some of the other major conflicts that are very foreign to us today because our military is really a shadow of its former self. So to think 25 million is an unbelievable number. Well, I looked it up again this morning because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't throwing some numbers out there that were inaccurate. I expected it to be a little bit lower, but it was 19.5 million. In 10 years, according to what I found on the internet, we have lost 5.5 million veterans in 10 years. That's absolutely unbelievable. And it really, to me, maybe more than any other statistic, shows how this legacy of service to our country maybe is fading a little bit. There aren't as many people, in the future it's going to be less and less and less, who understand what it really means to serve this nation and what it takes to earn the freedom that we all enjoy each and every day. And I know you hear that all the time, but to me, those numbers are very telling in the scope and the magnitude of the sacrifice of the generations that came before us. And I wonder how long into the future this understanding and appreciation for how much it took to build and create what we enjoy today, how long that appreciation is going to last. So I think doing things like this event this morning and later on in the park later on this morning do a lot toward that. I mean, quite honestly, I look back at my life and I see how much attention Veterans Day gets, like this particular year, and pretty much everywhere you look, there's some attention drawn to it. There's soldiers at football games, or you name it. In Huntsville, where I live, it's an entire week of celebration for veterans. So I think all of those things together are going to go a long way toward helping people remember what it really took to get where we are today, and how precious it is, and how easily it could slip away if we take it all for granted. My story got a lot of attention in Black Hawk Down for sure. But again, when I think about that number of 25 million and today 20 million, how many other stories are there out there that no one will ever know about? I mean, there are probably millions. Not exactly like mine, but in many ways very similar. Sacrifices equal to or greater. And those stories will never be told. But regardless, I'm humbled and honored to be asked to come here today. The things that I like to talk about with regard to Somalia, normally, I still talk about it all the time. It's amazing to me. I probably give 40 to 50 presentations about Somalia specifically every year to a variety of organizations. In fact, there's probably people in here who have seen me do one somewhere nearby over the past 15 years that I've been doing it. There's still a lot of attention on that mission, and I think there's a number of reasons. One is they made a movie about it. And anytime there's a movie about something that is as popular as Black Hawk Down was, it lives on. I mean, not only does it live on here, but it lives on internationally. There's people around the world that have a pretty good insight into what happened in that particular battle as a result of Mark Bowden's book and movie. So that's certainly part of it. Another reason is we're finding ourselves today in a very different world than we were in 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we had spent generations building a military designed to fight the Soviet Union. We really envisioned the next big conflict involving the major superpowers, probably in Europe, and everything we had built was designed around that sort of futuristic view of the next great battle, World War III, if you will. And the equipment was designed for that, the training was designed for that, the tactics were all designed for that, what we thought was inevitable major conflict, which never happened. So we find ourselves in the late 80s, early 90s, all of a sudden engaged in these very unconventional type situations. Somalia, Haiti, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, the Philippines, Syria today, all of these very unconventional situations that a lot of our equipment and our training and our tactics were not really well suited for. So what we ended up in the middle of is a major transition. And anybody that served in the military in the last 20 years will tell you they've lived through that transition. How we went from what we thought we were going to do to now understanding what it is we are doing and likely to do in the foreseeable future. So I saw Somalia as a turning point because it really was one of the first major battles where we're now up against terrorists and fighting in an urban environment and using tools, techniques, and procedures that were very different from what we thought we ever would. So that's another reason why it gets looked at a lot. It was also right at the point where technology was really emerging on the battlefield. We had live video of the mission. We had recordings of all the communications. There were satellite communications being utilized. We were using GPS. We had surveillance platforms that were monitoring all these activities. And some of that had been done before, but not in as much detail as were done in Somalia. So there's a lot of great, accurate evidence about what actually happened that day. So it makes for great case studies because people can really dig into the weeds and figure out what actually happened. But I think the main reason that we continue to look at that mission is 18 Americans died on that day, 74 were wounded. We had 5 Black Hawks shot down, and a lot of that did not need to happen. Our senior civilian leadership did not do a great job resourcing the tactical commander. And there's probably folks out here in the audience today that can tell you that they were in that same situation in some other nasty place somewhere else in the world. But that is really, to me, the takeaway from Somalia. We can't put people out there in harm's way doing our nation's business without 100% commitment on the part of the American people, the American civilian leadership, and everything we can bring to bear in these situations. We owe it to them. And, when the ground force commander is asking for things and they are denied for political reasons, that to me is the unforgivable sin. Now there are times when resources are not available, either they're just not created yet, or you can't get them there fast enough, or they're committed elsewhere. But when they're sitting idle, available and ready to go, and they are not given to the ground force commander to improve their probability of success, again, that is the unforgivable sin. And I think that is a major lesson learned. And when you look at the last 20 years, to me anyway, you saw a lot more reference to the ground force commander. The ground force commander seemed to have a much more powerful and important vote in what we decided to do and not do as a nation. And we can never lose sight of that, because when we start slipping back in the other direction and start second guessing those folks that are out there in the field, we're setting ourselves up for disaster. And the reason is we just don't see the true picture here. We see what the media decides to tell us. We see what our civilian leaders want to tell us. We don't really understand what is going on right at what we call the point of the spear. To really appreciate that, you've got to be there. You have to be at ground zero. So you got to listen to the people that are there and support them and do what they say they want and need, unless you can absolutely prove to them that they're wrong. And seldom can you do that. So that to me is one of the primary reasons why we still look at Somalia today. The mission itself was one of the most noble we've ever ventured out into. This was a humanitarian mission from the beginning. This was starvation. This was not a fight over oil. This was not a fight over shipping lanes. This was not a fight over resources. This was people dying. And we stepped in as a nation to help turn the tide of starvation. We committed our military, we committed our civilian organizations, just like we're doing today in West Africa. Same thing. There's nothing there we care about other than people. We're trying to help the world. And we got the most capability in this world still, no matter how much criticism we get for whatever. We have more capability than any other nation, and probably will be in that situation for a long time to come. Not only do we have the resources and the skills and the will, but we actually do it. We actually go out there. I mean, who's on point in Liberia right now? I don't hear too many other countries as deeply involved as we are. The United States. Who's on point in the war against ISIS? The United States. Who's on point in Afghanistan? The United States. Who's on point in what remains in Iraq? The United States. And we are leading the way in all these places in the world because we know it's the right thing to do. And not all of them are for military reasons. I mean, certainly Liberia is not. It's a great example. So Somalia was one of those. And in spite of the goodwill of us and the utilization of our military, it still took a turn that we didn't foresee. It became essentially a battleground. Not what we expected going in, but that's what it became. And in the conduct of that decline in the situation on the ground there, things got ugly over time, and eventually it all came to an apex on October 3rd, 1993, the day I got shot down. We've been very successful up until that point. We had conducted 6 missions, 4-day missions, or 3-day missions, 3-night missions, and we captured 26 people. The UN wanted 50 individuals apprehended. We captured 26, including the number 2 guy. Probably the high point of my military career, to be on a mission where the number 2 guy in a conflict like that has been captured. You took no losses. I don't think we even killed anybody on the enemy side, which is, whether you think that or not, is a good thing. I mean, we don't want to kill people. We want to complete the mission. So we did all that, and I remember sitting there in my helicopter watching this guy Osmanado being taken into the hangar. And if you saw the movie, this is the guy that smokes the cigar. Well, in the movie, he's kind of arrogant when he's smoking that cigar. In the real world, he's about as humble as you could imagine, because he just had his butt kicked by a bunch of 300-pound special operators. So he was not all that arrogant in the real situation. But we had all that success, and then this mission rolls around, and the things that we knew we needed had not been provided. And those specifically are an aircraft carrier. We wanted a base out at sea so that when we launched, the enemy didn't know we were launching. Where they had put us in this particular situation is right in their backyard. I'm literally from here to whatever T-box that is out the window, away from the enemy. Well, when you're that close, number one, you're vulnerable. They can shoot at you. And number two, they can see everything you're doing. So if you're going to launch 25 helicopters, they're going to be able to monitor that, and they're going to let their leadership know, hey, the helicopters are taking off. So we want to be on a ship where we have force protection and we have the element of surprise. Ship denied. We want an AC-130 gunships. Any former Air Force folks out here? There's got to be a few. Low intensity conflict, don't leave home without it. I mean, it is an amazing platform. If you're not familiar with it, it's got a 20 millimeter, a 40 millimeter, and a 105 millimeter howitzer hanging out the side. They can sit up there for hours and shoot at the enemy.
Off the Magic Dragon.
Off the Magic Dragon from Vietnam. That's it, you know, amazing. Now, there's not a lot of them. They had been in Somalia and were removed from Somalia during our operations. Hard to understand that one. We wanted tanks because we knew if we lost a helicopter on some of these fights, I mean, you can imagine we're in a city, right? So if I'm on a target and I get shot down and you're all buildings, I'm going to crash right here in the middle of all of you in a helicopter. That's sort of the curse of being a helicopter guy. So if I do that, what we typically use to recover aircrew is another helicopter. We call it a search and rescue bird. So does it make a lot of sense if I just got shot down a minute ago to come in with yet another one and hover over that same spot to put some additional resource on the ground? I hope you don't think so, because it doesn't. So we asked for a better solution, and the better solution that we had come up with was a tank. Because again, if I got to drive from here to that T-box, I might as well be in a tank as in a helicopter. I'm going to get there just as fast. So we asked for a tank. It went all the way to the Secretary of Defense. That's the only time in my military career that I know specifically we asked for something at a unit level that went all the way to him, and it was denied. Again, not denied because these assets are not available. Denied because civilian leadership had decided Somalia's not wrapping up. We're starting to bring stuff out. We're not going to put resources back in. It's going to make the American people think we're losing control of the situation. So denied. And I finally met a guy about 3 years ago in Washington, D.C., who was in the room with Les Aspect. And he said, I can confirm. He personally denied the request. Because it was always, again, you know, you only know what you read in the paper, what you hear. You can't guarantee with 100% certainty that what you have been told is true and accurate. And then finally, you know, again, when you talk about this distance, they're dropping mortars on our heads routinely. In fact, the 18th member of Task Force Ranger who is killed by a mortar. He's killed the day after I get shot down. He's standing on the ramp. They're probably trying to figure out, you know, the initial plans for a rescue. He's standing there, and a mortar is dropped right in the middle of those guys, and he is killed. So we had asked for, there's a capability in indirect fire world, it's called counter battery fire. You can actually track a projectile on its way inbound and calculate its source, and then put fires back on that source. I mean, the technology's been around for a long time. Don't know how accurate it is. We never got to use it. But we asked for it. That was denied as well. So all those things, readily available, denied. This is why Somalia goes from what at one point could have been one of the missions we were most proud of in modern history, because we accomplished the mission, we helped feed the starving people, we provided security, we captured the leadership in the clan, all successfully without killing a lot of people. We didn't drop a lot of bombs, we didn't blow a lot of stuff up. Unfortunately, as a result of a lack of resources and handcuffing the ground force commander, goes to what now most people, I think, in the big picture, look back at Somalia and put it in the lost column. I mean, we're not real proud of how things went in the end there. And that was all the result of bad decisions at the highest level within our senior leadership. The last thing I'm going to talk about, because I think I probably overran my time, but I'm not sure, is two great Americans involved in this particular mission, named Randy Shugart and Gary Gordon. Gary and Randy were Delta Force snipers. They were on this mission from day one, which went all the way back to early summer, if you include the planning and the preparation prior to deployment. And their mission was to, from the back of a helicopter, provide very precise close-in fires to support the assault force on the ground. So they're going to be in this hovering helicopter. They see bad guys with RPGs or a threat to the ground force, and they're going to take them out. I mean, these guys, like the Navy SEALs who shot the Somali terrorists in the Captain Phillips scenario, same kind of shooters. I mean, these guys can literally hit anything. I mean, you want to go hunting with these guys, you're going to get something. I mean, they're going to hit it no matter what. what the scenario or distance or situation involved. So they are on board this helicopter and they see our aircraft get shot down. And we're in a bad way. I mean, we're isolated, we're all badly injured, but we're alive. And Gary and Randy see wounded soldiers soon to be overrun if they don't take action. So they got on the radio and they asked the leadership, the military leadership there, if they could go in. And initially, the leadership said no. And I understand that. I mean, you got to make tough decisions in combat. And you know, a word we're probably all familiar with is triage. I mean, in a medical situation, you got limited resources. You can only help the people you know you can help. The others that are too badly injured or wounded, you can't spend time on them because you're going to potentially lose others that you can save by trying to save people you can't save. So that's really the thought process as I rationalize it. And I understand it. I mean, I understand it. I'm probably the weakest position in terms of defense, ability to defend. And there's 4 other fights going on. You got a convoy, you got the assault force on the target, you got the first aircraft shot down, and now you got me. So I guess I'm the 4th fight. Well, Randy and Gary, they don't take no for an answer. They continue orbiting overhead. They see more movement on the ground. And as the story goes, you got to understand, I'm not telling this firsthand. I'm on the ground. I don't know what the heck's going on. All I know is I hear a helicopter every now and then. But apparently Randy made 2 more requests. And finally they're talking directly back to the ops center. And they convince the leadership that they understand the risks involved and they believe that they can make a difference. So they're given permission to be dropped off. And they're dropped off to the rear of the aircraft, make their way up alongside. The first time I see them, they're standing right next to me. Now, they were not personal friends, but I knew them. We've been involved in this planning and mission for months now. So I'm relieved. I mean, I'm thinking, wow, there's already a rescue force here, and how in the world did they get here? What I don't realize is that there's only 2 of them, and it's going to be 8 hours before another American is going to get to our crash site. So we got a pretty tough job. We defended for maybe 20 minutes. It's hard to say. Time is a very tough thing to judge when you're in the middle of something like that. It may have been 10, it could have been 30, somewhere in there. And being vastly outnumbered, we're overrun. And in that overrun, Gary and Randy are both killed, as is the rest of the crew. A lot of debate about why I was spared. I was on the far side of the aircraft. When they took me out, they set me right alongside my seat. And the main attack came from the opposite side. So most of the shooting is happening on the other side of the bird. And I'm in this kind of confined little spot on the right side between a wall and the aircraft. When the Somalis finally came around the nose, and we're talking hundreds of them, we're not talking a couple, I'm pretty sure they thought everyone was dead. They sort of seemed surprised to see me, and then descended on me, and as was mentioned in the bio, broke some additional bones, cheek, nose, eye socket, ripping my gear off. It was about as chaotic a scene as you could possibly imagine. I was scared to death. You know, I will say it later if you happen to come to the speech later. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to continue to do your job even though you got the crap scared out of you. I mean, there's no way you cannot be frightened to death in a situation like that. And I'm just trying to do what they taught me to do in survival school, and it worked, and I thank them for that. In the end, I'll spend 11 days in captivity and be released, fortunately, back to the unit, back home in less than 2 weeks, which is probably what saved my life. But in the end, for Randy and Gary's actions, they were posthumously awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And there have been several more since, but at the time, it was the first in over 2 decades for actions in combat. So for their sacrifice, on this particular day, on Veterans Day, I can think of no greater act than what Randy and Gary did that particular day, and no greater reason to celebrate a day like today than their memory. And I thank you so much for inviting me here today to share these comments with you and for your recognition of the tremendous sacrifice of all veterans, and wish you all a happy Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durant. We appreciate you starting this special day here at the Bonita Bay Club with our veterans. We thank you for your service. We are honored to have you here. To show our appreciation, we would like to present you with a gift box commemorating your day here at the Bonita Bay Club. This gift box has been etched with the No One Left Behind logo, along with your name and the Bonita Bay Club. Inside is an enticement, besides having your mom in this area, to have you come back to our area and enjoy our hospitality. I would ask that all veterans come up here to the stage where Becky will place us, and we will have our picture taken with Michael Durant. So all veterans. This part of the celebration is very, very special to me because I've been lucky enough to see what's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 minutes. And as one person saw it, who sent an email, she said, make sure you have Kleenex. So, without further ado, this is a video which has been put together by Becky and Aldo of the veterans who sent in pictures in their uniform, and 3 of our veterans who actually spoke on the presentation. We will be emailing to you eventually a copy of this so that you can see it, keep it, send it to your grandchildren, or whatever you'd like to do with it. So Becky, are we ready?